SB 295 would require that the Air Resources Board redo its economic analysis of the scoping plan and would delay implementation of AB 32 until the economy has also had a chance to recover. Implementing AB 32 successfully is going to be vital to California's economy and to the environment. I am sure the committee members are well aware of the many criticism that peer reviewers have actually had. LEO, for an example, has raised questions about the accuracy of the board's economic analysis. By example, the LEO found that the scoping plan includes an inconsistent and incomplete evaluation of costs and savings. The LEO also found that the analysis fails to identify the timing of needed investments and resulting savings. The LEO states that such information is critical to business, households, and the decision makers, like ourselves, who represent them. Professor Kahn of UCLA, who actually was pro-AB, or still is pro-AB 32, expressed concern that the analysis was inaccurate, noting that the net dollar cost of each of the regulations is likely to be much larger than what it was actually reported. I don't believe that we can implement AB 32 properly if we don't have an accurate idea of the cost and the benefits that it will provide. I'm deeply troubled by the many concerns that have been raised. I truly fear that the scoping plan in its current form could severely harm California's small businesses and our economic recovery. AB 32 is too important to fail, and I mean that with all sincerity. I was not in favor of AB 32, but it is the law. And I think there is a way that, and I'd like to continue to work with ways that we can implement AB 32 so that it truly is become the example of how to do it and do it right. And in order for AB 32 to be a success, the legislature and the policymakers must have accurate information. The problems with the current economic analysis have been well documented. The Air Resources Board has already agreed to redo its analysis, but that analysis needs to be done prior to the development of regulations, not after. In the private sector, I made my career doing workouts. I made my career out of taking projects that failed for one reason or another, and to have a serious and a accurate economic analysis and business plan is critical to figuring out how to create the workout. The same thing would apply here. You don't make regulations before you actually have done a serious job on analyzing the effects, both good and bad. Because if we better understand the bad, we actually can modify it to make it good. I believe in the win-win scenario, and I think there's a way to implement AB 32 in a win-win type scenario. The problems with the California economy has also been well documented. I don't have to repeat anybody for anybody. Unemployment is now 11.2%, the highest recorded level in the history of California, and we're actually the fourth highest in the nation. My particular district down in the Inland Empire, we're above 13% at this time. Study after study shows California business climate is one of the worst in the nation. California cannot afford to implement AB 32 in a way that will cause people to lose their jobs or businesses to locate outside of California. And for these reasons, I agreed to carry this bill for the Black Chamber of Commerce, and I would request a favorable consideration.
Committee members, I'm Aubrey Stone, President and CEO of the California Black Chamber. AB 32 was passed in a totally different economic environment. In 2006, unemployment was not over 11%, and the state had not yet put $14 billion worth of new taxes on the citizens. My position is simple, honest, straightforward. Based on the current economic situation and the failure of the Air Resources Board to provide a clear and objective cost analysis to the public at large, but especially the small minority businesses and communities of color, based on these findings, serious and professional consideration should be given to implementing a time-certain moratorium on AB 32.
Good afternoon. I'm Betty Jo Ticoli. First of all, I'm a small business owner. Secondly, I have the opportunity to be president of the California Small Business Association, and California Small Business Association is a co-sponsor of SB 295. The concern was that the economic study that was part of the original bill of AB 32 to study the impact of small business be conducted. So we are not opposed to AB 32 and its implementation. We're just asking for a more realistic timetable and that the homework be done first.
How big do you believe the economic collapse in California should be before we just delay the implementation of AB 32?
Since then, not every year, but every month since then, there's been a new study come out, either domestically or internationally, that speaks to the urgency of acting sooner rather than later. So we have considerably more information than we had in 2006 when that was written. On the specific point versus...
So so at that point you think that's irrelevant and you don't care what kind of economic impact it has?
I think it's out of date. I think it's out of date.
So you don't, so again, there's
on the point of the economy versus the climate, I think the economic recession challenges, serious challenges that we're going through now, pale in comparison to the potential impacts of
So you're willing
global
to
warming.
say...
So I'm strongly opposed to any delay.
Yeah, I just want to state where I'll be. I will be opposed to this bill. I find it very important, the discussion that we have. It is unfortunate that we frame the debate in terms of competing interests of small businesses versus the survival of the planet. But really, to me, the overall issue is the survival of the planet.
Well, just two things. I associate myself with Mr. Senator Lowenthal's remarks about the future of the planet, the future of our children and our grandchildren, which is quite literally on the line. Having said that, this is a very big brush bill.
I mean, there are leading economists that have said that you're doing it wrong, and I get the feeling sometimes that what's really happening here is that they're saying it doesn't matter. Matter of fact, I think somebody even said that. It doesn't really matter how it affects small business. Then you got to be honest with these people and tell them that. Tell them they're expendable. Tell them it doesn't really matter how it's going to affect you on the short term, because we are so convinced that this is the way it's got to be, that you're expendable. Tell them that. Be honest with them.
I don't think the sentiment is here on this committee to say we're going to forestall the current effort underway in advancing AB 32 pending the completion of such studies. I don't think the sentiment is here on this committee to say we're going to wait until the unemployment rate is below 5.8% for the implementation of AB 32. What I think you may be able to find some support on the committee for, and certainly the chair falls into this category, is I accept the notion, which you have articulated very ably, that we really ought to fully understand the economic consequences of the decisions we make. Now, three things you're asking for. Two of the three are likely to be non-starters on this committee. The third, in my judgment, is something there may be some support for, and it is perhaps a third of a loaf or less, but it's your judgment as to whether or not you want to proceed on that if I have accurately characterized where a majority of the committee may be. It's your bill, and I think you know I respect the fact that it's your bill, so it's your call. If you would like to ask for a motion and have the measure voted up or down, that's your prerogative. If you'd like to say you're disappointed that you can't get farther than a third of a loaf, but you're going to work on that, that's also your prerogative. How would you like to proceed, Senator?
Well, it depends on the third of the loaf, but I'd like to continue to work on it.
All right, thank you. All right, well then I think without objection, we will continue the item to our next hearing.